Hey Dave, how you doing today?
Not bad, Nick. How are you?
Another glorious Friday, another great podcast day.
They just keep rolling by, don't they?
They sure do. So we got another good topic today. Actually, rounding out, completing our SRB process. We are at the build meeting stage of our strategic, reliable blueprint process. And this is kind of that wrap up meeting, if you will. Well, wrap up isn't necessarily the right word because what we're
No.
doing is we're essentially finishing creating this financial plan, but that's really only the beginning of our work.
Right, right. This is where it's pretty much the culmination of the introductory process,
Right.
and where we kind of transition from figuring all the pieces out to saying, okay, this is how we move forward and help you advance your financial life.
Absolutely. So we've kind of, we've got all the plans laid out, and now it's about, building, if you will, the plan itself. And then, like any good project, there's always some reconstruction and things along the way that need to get
Right.
changed, fixed, updated, right?
Right. Yeah. No. We're kind of starting with the end here, but yeah, it's whatever comes out of the build process. I was out when we used to do like printed binder plans coming out of this stage, and I
Mm-hmm.
used to tell people that they were pretty much out of date by the time the ink dried coming out of the printer.
Right.
So it's really more or less an inflection point, I think is a good way to think about it. That it's that transition between coming into our office with, a bunch of file folders or electronic gobbledygook and not knowing necessarily what you should be doing or where you wanted to go, to having that roadmap laid out, that blueprint. I guess I should not mix my analogies, right? Have the blueprint that we designed laid out and ready to go. And now we're making specific recommendations about what we're going to help you do over the next 12 months and sometimes longer, depending on, we tend to think in 12-month chunks, like here's what we need to do for the next year to keep your plan on track.
Right, absolutely. We're at that point where we've, played around with the scenarios and strategies, and we've kind of landed on one that we like. But just like anything in this world, like you said, when the ink dries, it's probably, well, it is out of date because, the market numbers change every minute. But also, I was telling somebody earlier today, between us, we've probably done thousands of financial plans. I don't think one of them's come true yet. One of
Right,
them hasn't
right.
had to be changed. So,
Right.
that's kind of
Sounds
the
horrible when you
nature of
say
the
it that way,
beast.
but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, we expect that though, that we're making a bunch of educated guesses, not only about the
Hmm.
markets and the tax law and everything else, but also about like who you want to be when you grow up, right?
Right.
And we put a lot of work in that on the front end, but we've probably said this more often than we need to, but the human brain is not good at understanding that, so we have to be ready for it to change and evolve, and
Yeah.
the plan will move. But
Just too many variables to get everything right and not have some changes. And, that's just kind of the nature of it. But also, if we were able to live in a perfect world where we could predict everything, that's, I don't think anybody wants that either, to be honest
no,
with you.
right, right, right. So, but from a practical standpoint, at this meeting, we're getting specific and we're saying, here's what we want to do in your 401k. We want you to contribute this much, and this is how we're going to invest it. And in your old retirement plan, here's what we think we need to do. And for your budget, these are the things we want to watch. And we've looked at your insurance situation, and these are the pieces we need to help you put in place to make sure your
Hmm.
plan is safe. And sometimes it's a little speculation, like when we get to social security age, this is kind of our framework for how we think you should claim social security. That's going to change over the next 10 years, but that's what we're kind of thinking right now. And these are the decisions we'll probably be making about your pension if you have one. So we start to get really, specific about what you need to do to get your plan in place.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point going back to, Social Security among other things, but a lot of this is because there's so much that's going on, so many moving pieces and parts. Social Security is a great example where we might have a strategy going in, but we're also evaluating that strategy on a regular basis because things are
Yeah,
going to change and there might be a reason to change that. So we might have, the best laid intentions of
yeah.
waiting to take Social
Well,
Security until someone's 70, but that could very well change between
right.
58 and 70.
Right. I've had, conversations where with a 40-year-old, we were getting really specific about Social Security, and it was like, no, just wait a minute. Just because,
Right.
we're gonna plan on, you waiting until you're 70 to claim Social Security. It's not etched in stone. It'll be
Yeah.
printed on the page in this plan that we did today, but
Right.
we're not saying that this won't change. It's just kind of a framework to think about it for right now.
Yeah. Well, and I think, from the client perspective, it's helpful because we know that we've addressed these things. So it's not just
Right.
hey, when you get Social Security, we'll figure it out. It's hey, we've got a plan going in, but just like
Yeah.
anything, the best laid plans sometimes don't work out the way that you want, so we have to adjust that
Right.
plan. But
Right.
the whole point of going through and being comprehensive about all of this stuff, like insurance, like investments, is yes, we have a plan and we have a thought process around why we think this will work, but we're also going to be agile around what needs to change and when and how often we need to look at these
Right.
things to make sure nothing needs to change. And so that peace of mind bit that you get from having a plan built, having these decisions kind of roughed out, so that when something comes up, we know when and how to change those things. But also, how often do we check into these things? How often do we think about them? How often do we potentially make changes? So you don't have to sit around and worry about, well, I'm not really quite sure what I'm doing with Social Security or how that's going to affect,
Right.
or my pension or my 401k, because we've addressed all those things.
Right. And part of those recommendations, we're pretty proud of some of the work we've done over the last year or so as a team, coming up with like how to manage a year for a client and set those markers of, okay,
Mhm.
coming out of this plan in December, by June, we want to make sure we've got your insurance situation taken care of. And by, we're going to revisit your big picture goals next November. We'll set
Right.
those stakes in the ground so we kind of have a way for you to, from the client's point of view, to think about how that next year is going to play out.
Absolutely. And, working with a financial planner, there's some things that we are going to do and kind of run with, like, the investment side of things, oftentimes, where we're managing on an ongoing basis. But there's also the accountability factor. And I think a lot of our clients appreciate that about working with us, where it's, hey, you need to update your estate plan. And, with this, we talk about the issues around that and what to think about and the questions to ask your estate planning attorney. But then we're also going to help you set some goals for when you're going to get that done, how you're going to get that done, what that's going to look like. So you can go on and implement some of this stuff on your own. So that accountability of, when you come in for the next meeting, that we're going to have a conversation around estate planning. And if you don't have it done, that's not going to be, that's kind of on you. But also, a lot of people need that extra accountability to get things done that they don't
Right.
necessarily want to get done.
Right. Yeah. There's one of my early mentors in the business was fond of saying, "I can't do everything, but I can help make sure everything gets done." And
Yeah,
that's a big part of it too. And
absolutely.
just having somebody in your corner that speaks the insurance language when you need the insurance language, and can speak,
Hmm.
the HR language when you need to, talk to HR about benefits.
Right.
That's
For
another big
sure.
part too.
Yeah, and I think, going through, obviously we're at that point where we're making recommendations on things, investments, retirement income plans, saving strategies, but also, throughout the next year we have that, like we talked about, that planned interaction of what we're going to do, when we're going to do it by, what that all looks like. but ultimately, inevitably, stuff is going to come up in between then. And so having someone that you can reach out to and just ask the question of, hey, I've been thinking about this, or how's this going to affect my plan,
Yeah.
or
Well,
all of those different things, I think is super helpful. From I've had as little as people asking me questions about buying a new refrigerator, dishwasher, to bigger things like moving and selling a house and moving states, that kind of thing.
yeah. Or, a common one over the last few months, get a call from a client. My mortgage banker just called me and said I might want to refinance. Does that make sense
Mm,
for me? You know,
right.
done done a lot of amortization tables over the course of the last months or a year, to see if it makes sense. And a lot of, most of those recommendations were good recommendations, but that's a big part of how we fit into that equation is the neutral cross reference, you know.
Yeah, the objective point of view, where there's no emotion involved in that decision. When you
Right,
bring us a mortgage decision, we're going to get the facts and we're going to help you look at the pros and
right,
cons so you can make the best decision. Not
right.
get excited because your mortgage person or some mortgage person said you could save $200 a month.
Right, who likely is being paid on commission and
Right.
wants you to do the mortgage.
Very
So,
incentivized for you to save
right,
$200 a month.
right, right, right. So, those kind of things. I'm always happy when we get those calls. I always tell our ongoing clients, whenever a financial question crosses your mind, I want to be your first call. We want to be
Yeah.
the one you think of instead of wondering if you should do it, or can you afford it, or should you do it?
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right, and I think that's such a big benefit of working with a financial planner, is that they can be that objective resource. And I think that everybody ultimately has that person, but it's just a matter of who that person is and what that advice looks like, and it's why we work so hard to be objective. And be fee only planners and reduce conflicts of interest so we can be the best version of that we can. But
Hmm.
even growing up young and having those questions, I would ask my dad those questions, and he would probably admit that he's maybe not the best situated to answer some of those questions when you're younger. So ultimately, you're probably asking somebody those questions, and the benefit of
Right,
having a financial planner is they know what you're, especially, and the benefit of this process is when somebody calls me with that question, I know exactly what their goals are and what they want to
right,
accomplish and what's most important to
right.
them. Then I can help frame that decision that they're thinking of. Are we getting closer to that or further away?
Well, yeah, and kind of taking that back to the mortgage question, is your goal to reduce your monthly payments? Is your goal to pay your mortgage off more quickly? Or is your goal to
Right.
save money over the life of your mortgage? Those are three different competing goals that can all mean it's either good or bad to refinance. But unless you talk through what you're trying to accomplish, you can get very
Right.
different answers. So we kind of we kind of jumped down a rabbit hole away from the build meeting here, but I think these are all important things that come out of that meeting that um, illustrate the
Absolutely.
importance.
It's kind of the end of the process but the beginning of the process, so it's kind of this
Hmm.
tipping point of, yes, we have this plan put together, we've given you recommendations, but also this starts into the next phase, which is living life in this plan and thinking
Hmm.
about how do we make decisions when questions come up or when things change as it relates to the plan that we put together.
Yeah, yeah, yep. And that's I think it should come through that we're pretty proud of what we've got put together here, and it's the culmination of close to 40 years experience between us, I believe, at this point.
Yeah.
So we believe in what we do, and I think we do a great job for the clients that engage in this process.
Absolutely, and I think the some of the best compliments that we've gotten is, well, I didn't really think that this process would be so impactful, but it really has changed a lot of
Hmm.
the way that I think about things, and I just having that confidence in the plan and the direction that you're going. Those are some of
Hmm.
the best compliments that we can get, and I think a lot of our clients feel that way after that process. And one of the things about process, and one of the things I know about myself and you as well, Dave, is it's always an ongoing. We're always looking for ways to improve the process and different
Right.
things that we can do as well. And so, maybe in 10 years we'll have to come back and re-update probably less than that, the way that we go
I
about
hope we can
things.
make it
But
10 months, but
but we're always looking for ways to improve it and to get
yeah,
better. And financial planning and technology is always changing as a part of that. And so
true. Yeah.
incorporating that in as well is super important. But definitely the foundation of what we've built will, I think, last for a long time in terms of how we
Hmm.
think about planning and how we do it.
Yeah. Well, and I think about where it was 21 years ago, where it was about what mutual fund would you recommend for me, and what was
Right.
its return last year, was like where those conversations started with clients. And
Yeah.
to now, start that off with, we're not even going to worry about the investments until we figure out where you're going. It's just a whole different feeling.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's super helpful from a client perspective too.
Yeah.
So that wraps up our series on our strategic, reliable blueprint process. So feel free, if you
Yeah.
have questions, to reach out to info@srbadvisors.com. We are, like we said, proud of the process and excited to come back and answer any questions that you might have about the process or how that works. And we're looking forward to coming back and coming up with some more series. So if you have an interesting topic or series you want us to talk about, feel free to email that to us as well. We always love to answer some questions from listeners.
Yeah.
Um,
Otherwise, we're going to have
Other
to
than
think of something
that,
to talk about next week.
yeah, that's a scary
No,
thought.
series is over. Back to being
There's always
creative.
something out there. I'm sure we'll think of
We'll figure
something
it out.
if there's.
We'll
So,
figure it out.
as always, a pleasure, Dave. This has been a fun topic for me personally, and looking forward to the next one.
Great. Thanks, Nick. I'll talk to you later.